Chillingly, not long before her death, Eve told Robert that she felt she was being followed on her nightly walks back from the train station to her home. In 1980, Eve Wilkowitz was on the verge of her 21st birthday and working as a secretary for a publishing company in New York City. The night of March 21st, she had gone to dinner and a movie after work with her boyfriend, Jack Dempsey. When she left his house a little after midnight, she took the train home from Manhattan to her Long Island apartment. In the early hours of March 23rd, when her roommate, Robert Grogan, noticed that Eve hadn't returned home in a while, he reported her missing. Chillingly, not long before her death, Eve told Robert that she felt she was being followed on her nightly walks back from the train station to her home. Because of this, she began taking a taxi from the train station rather than making the 10-minute walk alone. However, police believe that night, for an unknown reason, Eve decided to walk home instead of calling a taxi. 3 days after she was reported missing, her body was found on a lawn just 3 blocks from her apartment when a woman noticed a figure and a pair of bare feet on her neighbor's lawn. The body was identified as Eve's. She was only partially dressed, and there were ligature marks on her wrist, suggesting that she had been bound, possibly during the days since her abduction, according to investigators. Her cause of death was found to be manual strangulation, and there was evidence that she had been sexually assaulted. Bodily fluids that did not match Eve's DNA profile was taken as evidence and stored, but no DNA matches could be made immediately, and it would remain on evidence shelves for decades. 32 years passed with still no answers, but Eve's sister, Irene, never stopped fighting for justice the whole time. Irene stayed on top of the police, emailing them every few weeks to inquire about updates on the status of the case. She also encouraged them to try new forensic techniques using the DNA evidence collected, since she'd seen the way so many cold cases were being solved in recent years through genetic genealogy. Irene's hard work and dedication paid off. Eventually, the FBI was able to use the DNA profile to identify the killer as Herbert Rice. The DNA was first linked to one of his sons, then Rice's body was exhumed and a sample of his bone was collected for comparison. Turns out, they were a match. Herbert Rice was Eve's killer. He was 29 years old at the time of the crime, and even though the investigation was thorough, with police canvassing the area and interviewing everyone on neighboring streets, Rice was never even suspected. Rice was never a person of interest in this case, mainly since he didn't have an extensive criminal record, only a few misdemeanors, so his DNA was never entered into any databases since he'd never been arrested for a violent offense. Police believe this was a crime of opportunity, as Rice lived on the block where the crime occurred. They also don't believe that Rice was responsible for any other murders before or after Eve's. Rice went on to have 2 sons that had no idea about their father's dark past, and he died from cancer in 1991. Although he never faced legal justice for what he did to Eve, his identification put her family's nerves at ease. Irene spent most of her life in fear that she would be killed next. She was scared to follow her dreams for fear of being murdered just like her sister. And now, with the understanding of what happened and the death of Herbert Rice, Irene and her son Evan, who was named in honor of his aunt Eve, are able to breathe a sigh of relief. Irene was beside herself with happiness that this day finally came. She told reporters, "I still can't believe I heard those words. We have identified the person responsible for the death of Eve." Sophie Sergey.